That's where we are at this point in time. And with servers, again, servers too. I do want servers back at Mass, but also make sure that we do it in a good, measured way. We know what's the best for it as well. That's where we're at this point in time. That's our Mass update. Beacons of light. So when you walk into the gathering space, what you're going to see at either kiosk is when you walk in. When I'm saying kiosk is you have a table and you have a stand-up, you know, a bulletin board, if you will. And when you first walk in, for each one, there's going to be a poster that says Beacons of Light. And there's a website, catholicioc.org/beacons. So I'm asking you, please go to the website, sign up for that, because that'll give us all the information about Beacons of Light. And then upcoming towards in the fall, it'll give you a lot of information about the families of parishes, and where you can also give feedback before they are solidified. So please sign up for that. Again, the question is why? Why are we doing this? So we just received a current reality report of the Archdiocese about 2.5 weeks ago. And I won't go into all the details right now, because I want to have like a town hall type of thing for people. So we can have, so I can present these things to people at one time. And kind of give parts of that current reality report, what's most important for us here in this area. So one of the things we need to realize is that we have 212 parishes, which means there are 100 regions, if you will, and that needs to be adjusted. It needs to be adjusted because of the reality of within 5 to 10 years, how many pastors we're going to have. And we have about 100 pastors right now. Within 5 to 10 years, we'll be down to about 50 pastors, 50 to 60 pastors, roughly. And so, which means that we won't be able to staff all those places. So one of the things that we'll talk that it is that's that there, in terms of how much mass attendance is going on. How much are we utilizing, in terms of our facilities. All these things are being taken into consideration across the whole Archdiocese. So one of the things we'll talk about, hope in this presentation, I'll present to PAC on Tuesday, but also help us to see why this is being pursued and the reality of the situation that we're moving into, and how much sustainability that will have over the next 5 to 10 years. So that's where that is. And so we'll get messages out about that in terms of once PAC is over on Tuesday, we'll then talk about town hall type stuff, where it'd be very important to attend and then get the information and then be able to get the updates from the Archdiocese as well. All right, so that's Beacons of Light. Now, one thing too with Beacons of Light is this weekend is the 200th anniversary of the Archdiocese. So June 19th, this Saturday, is the 200th anniversary. So another thing is we look at the Archdiocese has been serving this area for 200 years. It was the second diocese west of the Appalachian Mountains. It grew out of Bardstown. So at one point in time, Cincinnati, as it being the biggest city at that point in time, because of the canal work through the Ohio River, it covered all the states in the territories west of the Appalachian Mountains. So in essence, from here up through the Northwest Territories, in terms of, modern day Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, those areas, the Archdiocese covered. The diocese covered, if you will. There was an archdiocese back then. But the Cincinnati covered all that. So, and there was only, I think they said there was 5 priests that would be on horseback that covered all that territory. So Baden High School, Father Baden was one of the first priests to do that here. So Father Stephen T. Baden was one of the first priests. And the name of the bishop is slipping my mind right now. But I can't remember, but oh well. But a great trip. And this is what I'm highly recommending this. A great day trip is going to Bardstown, Kentucky. You're probably thinking, where's Bardstown? It's just south of Louisville. And that's where the first diocese was west of the Appalachian Mountains. And so the question is why Bardstown? Why there? Well, there was a person that gave land to the church, which the Bishop, is it Flave? I think that's right. He went down. It was like him, 6 seminarians, and like a priest went on a flatboat, starting in Pittsburgh and went all the way down the river, got off in Louisville, and then got on horse down to Flagey. There it is. I knew I'd get to it. Bishop Flagey. He was the first bishop west of the Appalachian Mountains. And he, so yeah, and there's a little cabin. And the little cabin is where they lived, where they studied, and did everything. And there was a widow who gave up her cabin, and she tended to the place, took care of the place, and that's where the first, if you will, Dawson offices were, quote unquote, in Bardstown, Kentucky. So the cabin is still down there. I've been there before. It's beautiful. And then there's what's called the Proto Cathedral of St. Joseph, is the first cathedral. So the diocese is no longer Bardstown. It's Louisville. Is now the Archdiocese of Louisville. So the first cathedral was down in Bardstown. So the Proto Cathedral of St. Joseph is down there as well. It's a beautiful, beautiful church. That's a great little day trip, or maybe a weekend being in Louisville. But that's about 2 hours from here, I think. From Cincinnati, it's like an hour and a half. But from here, it's probably a little 2 hours. But yeah, it's a nice little trip to go visit those places and to see where the church extended west out of the original 13 colonies into here. And so 20 years ago, this is 1921, so 2021, so 1821 is when the Archdiocese began. That's the 200th anniversary right there. And then if you saw a flock note from Deacon Chris, you saw that there was a Treasures of the Archdiocese book and a history of the diocese. It's kind of like a graphic novel that was put out. If you want one, please sign up for it because we need to meet with them within the next week and a half or so to see how many copies we need to purchase or get, and then people will buy at that point in time. So yeah, please find that flock note and sign up for that. If you want one of those, they'll be in the gathering space this weekend to look at those, if I remember correctly. So one of the things that we remember is that this 200 years, we have another, God willing, many more years beyond that to minister. So, and the question is how do we minister in the world today? So tonight is the candlelight mass. It's the first time we're doing it. It's at 7:45. So one of the things, we'll have confessions beforehand. One of the things that we're trying to do is just have a different mass experience. And a candlelight mass is one that's kind of like a little more solemn, and the only lights we'll be using are the candles for that. So one question came in, is the choir singing tonight? To my knowledge, no. I think we'll have a cantor or two, but not the full choir, to my knowledge. If it is, wonderful. But yeah, so, we'll have time for reconciliation, and then also time for mass following. And so, if you know someone that might want to go to this, please tell them tonight. We've been had on our monitor for the past couple weeks, and then when a flock note came out the other day. So yeah, so just remember that'll be going on this evening. But to my knowledge, it'll just be a couple cantors, and then Michelle playing as she normally does. It'll be a normal daily mass. It would just be in a different type of setting, if you will, and enter into that little more solemnness, if you will, of that. So as we move forward to our topics today. So thank you for asking that question. So St. Joseph. In the bulletin, the past couple weeks, I've had a section about what Pope Francis has written about St. Joseph. So he wrote an apostolic letter, if you will, called it's called Heart of the Father, and how the qualities of St. Joseph, as he has been as we see in St. Joseph. So St. Joseph's qualities and virtues would show he is, so it shows of God the Father. So, first and foremost, so there have been two of them. I'll talk about the first two. Then week 3 is the week following. So this weekend, so the first weekend is the obedient father. So we see Saint Joseph as he answered the call to be the father, foster father of Jesus here on earth, and then how he followed. So that actually that's the Sunday. The one last week was Joseph as a loving, docile father. How he taught Jesus how to be a disciple. And he walked with him in that loving care, and as he said, held his hand to show him how a father and a son, how a father leads the son. And in doing so, one of the things that Pope Francis quotes is one, obviously from the Gospels of Matthew and Luke, but also from the prophet Hosea. So a little background here. Hosea is one of the early minor prophets. Now, minor does not denote less than. A minor prophet just means there's 12 minor prophets, and what all that means is that all of their writings were on one scroll. And then you have the major prophets: Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, Daniel, and then they all had their own scroll. But the minor prophets had all 12 were in one scroll. That's why they're called, quote unquote, minor prophets. But they were major prophets of the Lord. So Job, Hosea, Zechariah, Nahum, all those were some of the minor prophets. But Hosea, do you remember singing the hymn, "Come Back to Me with All Your Heart"? That comes directly from Hosea, which says that you will, of how Israelites, how they have strayed from the Lord, but God is calling them back to faithfulness. Well, and also I did my master's thesis on Hosea, so that's why I enjoy talking about him. So chapter 11 of Hosea is one of the chapters that denotes the loving father qualities of God. And it starts off by talking about how the children, they grew up, they were close to the parent, but then they strayed, they went away, and so which upset God. But the thing is that God said, I can never turn my back on my people, and how the Father will then lead them back to Himself. And so he quotes that chapter of Hosea. It's a beautiful chapter. I highly recommend to anybody to go and actually look at that chapter, because it really details God's love for us. How, even though our sinfulness, our unfaithfulness, all those things, but yet how God never leaves and always brings them back home. And so you see Jesus or Joseph being that loving father to Jesus and teaching him how to be that disciple. So that's him being, and then in doing so, reminding ourselves too that he then goes into how sometimes when the Holy Spirit points out our faults and failings to us, it's never out of to shame us or disgrace us, but it's always as a loving way to help us know where we can find mercy and love, and how the Father brings mercy and love. And how when we feel the shame and disgrace and all those type of things, is because how the evil one wants to point that out so that we may be discouraged and not find that love and mercy and peace which God wants to have with us. So, and then the obedient father is the one where Joseph, as he was, how he was raised, how he, how the message of an angel every time, one, take Mary into your home, fly to Egypt, and then when to return, how Joseph was very obedient, how he followed very closely. And we find out what obedience really is not like, a negative thing, but it's actually very positive. It's like total giving of self to the other in that regard, because of how you follow, you give that gift of self to the other. And so Joseph becoming that dutiful, loving father, how he followed God. And then Pope Francis goes on to say that when we see Jesus, how he totally obeys the Father, how the mission of Jesus was totally obeyed, where he says, I did not come to do my will, but I do the Father's will. And the mission that was sent on was given him by the Father. He goes off and prays to learn the Father's will. All these things, and then he quotes Philippians, where he says, even though it was a form of God, he became human and took on human state and went to even death on a cross. And that is being the obedient one to the Father as well, because of the mission Jesus had. So please continue to look into the bulletin for those very short reflections on what Pope Francis has written. It's a 7-week series, and there'll be a new one every week, and then maybe a question for reflection at the end. And then finally, as we were talking about, so this past week I was at a workshop. So if you emailed me and you got my message back saying I'm at a workshop, please pray for me. I was one where I was with my brother priest, and we were represented St. John Vianney. Now, St. John Vianney lived in the late 18th and early 19th centuries in France. And, he's and the present that we received was, ours, France, is not too much different than with the world we live in today. It's, as he said, we just went we had a point out of 2.5 months where we have no one in church. And when he first got to the parish, when he grew up, it was during the French Revolution. And in doing so means that he received his first communion in a barn, because they could not go to church. The government would not allow him to go to church. And so as he grew up, he went to seminary, but was a very, very horrible student, unfortunately. And I think he was booted 3 times because he just couldn't learn the Latin needed. But it just reminds us that even though he was not good in school, it didn't mean that he could not be a very successful person and priest and saint that he became to be. When he was sent to ours, it was kind of like, because of his struggles in school, ours was like a very, very, very small agricultural town. And in doing so, it's kind of like, let's send this guy here where he could probably do the least amount of harm, sort of a thing. But within years, the French government, who was anti-religion at that point in time, remade their train schedules and train tracks to send to ours, France, because some people wanted to go listen to him and go to confession to him because of his holiness. And the thing is one of the things that we were told this week is that, what's really presented about St. John Vianney is he heard confessions 18 hours a day, which he did. And the only thing he would boil 7 potatoes on Sunday, and he'd eat 1 a day. It's of all the things that we know about him, that's the things that are told the most. He had some extreme penances, all these things. Well, when you realize he totally changed the culture of Ars France. When he first got there, there was like three people going to mass. It was something like that, maybe 5. And and so then he ends up building a bigger and bigger chapel by himself. So the thing is that he learns, as the priest told us, he learned how to raise money. He learned how to work with people. He was, and the thing is this too, is that what he did is the first night he was in the parish, and it's one of those things that where he comes in and goes, he kneels down and says, "Oh God, this chapel is not big enough for all the people that will come here." The first night, without even meeting anybody. And then what he does is he go and then consecrates the whole parish to the Blessed Virgin Mary. And what he did is he took like a silk ribbon, if you will, wrote all the names of the people of the parish on this silk ribbon, and then put it into a gold heart necklace, and then put it around the neck of the Blessed Virgin Mary statue, and consecrated the whole parish to the Blessed Virgin Mary. And that locket is still there today. So there was that. It was his example. It was his way of living. And sometimes we can get caught up in the fantastical stuff of it all, where, yes, he was extremely tempted and harassed by the devil. His bed was set on fire. If you go to his living quarters, you can still see the scorches of where the bed was set on fire from the devil. But beyond that, but when you look at him as a person, his faithfulness, how he dealt with people, how he took a great working with the youth. He taught the youth every day. He built orphanages. He built hospitals. In this little town where it was like, let's send this guy to where he can do the least amount of harm. But yet it transformed. And then the people of the town, I mean, there are those who had their addiction to drink and all the carousing and stuff like that, where again, transform the hearts, to conversion. So we're sitting in a time where we have, our mass attendance has dropped 20% in 10 years. Number of people who believe in the true presence is getting less and less among Catholics that go to mass. We have, schools that are shutting down, parishes that have less people coming to it. We have, we're nowhere near full capacity of the whole archdiocese. I'll talk about that when we do our town hall stuff. So apparently Ars Francis really is not that far away from what we are today. And, and how that radical faithfulness, I'm not saying we need to have those really strict penances or stuff like that, but, how will we allow God to change our hearts and realize the path that we're walking right now at times needs to change a little bit, and be open to a new way of transformation and allow God to help us, walk that path each day. So God bless you all. Thank you for a great week. And we continue on the story of St. John Vianney, who went from the patron of parish priests to patron of all priests. And what to finish with is that the greatest thing that John Vianney made the devil admit is this. He said that John Vianney asked the devil, what's your greatest accomplishment? And the devil said, to make people think I don't exist. To remind ourselves that the goodness of God is greater than the evil, but remember that the goodness of God reminds us there's always something pulling us away from him. And we have to remember our faithfulness to God is stronger than anything else in this world. God bless you all and have a great week.